In Israel, broad discontent even before deal's details are known. That headline from the New York Times tells you everything you need to know about the mood on the ground in Jerusalem right now, and the story behind it is worth unpacking. Sunday's edition of Yediot Aharonot, one of Israel's most popular Hebrew-language dailies, put it bluntly. 2 words on the front page: bad deal. That was the prevailing sentiment in Israel even before President Trump formally announced a ceasefire agreement with Iran, and the details that had been leaking out in the days prior were already enough to set off a firestorm of criticism. So what's actually in this deal? According to American and Iranian officials, Iran would reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point critical to global shipping, and in exchange, the United States would lift its blockade on Iranian ports. A ceasefire that both sides agreed to back in April would be extended by 60 days. During that window, the two sides would commit to negotiations over Iran's nuclear program and over the lifting of U.S. sanctions on Iran. Now, here's why that's a problem for Israel. Israel waged 2 wars against Iran over the past year, the most recent one launched in late February alongside U.S. forces. But Israel was not a party to these negotiations. And what Israeli officials and experts say is that the agreement appears to leave the most fundamental threats to Israel completely unaddressed. At the start of those wars, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that the goal was to remove what he called the existential threats to Israel, destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities and its ballistic missile program, and creating conditions for the Iranian people to topple their own government. Israel also demanded an end to Iran's support for its proxy forces, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and Hamas in Gaza. None of that, according to Israeli experts, appears to be in this deal. Jacob Nagel, a former acting national security advisor to Netanyahu, told reporters Sunday that while it's easy to promise topics for future negotiations, Iran's ballistic missiles and its support for regional proxy groups don't even appear as items on the negotiating agenda based on what's publicly known. The criticism came from all corners of the Israeli political map. Avigdor Lieberman, a right-wing former defense minister and one-time Netanyahu ally turned bitter critic, called it, and I'm quoting here, a catastrophe from Israel's perspective. Yair Lapid, the centrist parliamentary opposition leader, said he hoped the reports weren't true, but if they were, this would be one of the most shocking failures of Israel's foreign and security policy. Meanwhile, current Israeli government officials have said remarkably little, apparently wary of publicly antagonizing Donald Trump. Netanyahu's own statement on Friday said only that Iran would not acquire nuclear weapons as long as he is prime minister, and that he and Trump are in full agreement. He made no mention of ballistic missiles or proxy forces. An Israeli official briefed on the deal, speaking anonymously, laid out what Israel sees as the core problems. There are no clear answers about what happens to Iran's existing stockpile of enriched uranium. The deal relies too heavily on Iranian good faith. It would allow money to flow back into Tehran's coffers rather than creating pressure for regime change. And there's no mechanism to stop Iran from continuing to fund Hezbollah and other proxy groups. In fact, the deal would appear to require suspending Israel's military campaign against Hezbollah in Lebanon, a group Israel has been actively fighting since Hezbollah opened fire days after the Iran war began in late February. And adding political pressure to all of this, Israel is heading into national elections expected by late October. Netanyahu is caught between not wanting to alienate Trump, whose relationship he has made a centerpiece of his political identity, and an increasingly vocal coalition in public demanding he not capitulate to American terms. It's a narrow ledge to walk, and from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, a lot of Israelis are watching to see whether he falls off. That's the story from Jerusalem: a deal announced, a nation unconvinced, and a ceasefire whose durability may depend on negotiations that haven't even started yet.